Welcome to another episode. Wow, sometimes I try to say all the words at one time, like just like a collage where you paste everything on top of each other. Let me try that again. Take two. Welcome to another episode of Tomes and Tunes, itself a tongue twister. For like the first 3 months of episodes, I couldn't say that. So if you are one of those people, just know that you're not alone. Tomes and Tunes, inspired by my love of books and songs, and also the beginning of the pandemic. If you can scroll back 2 years when we were all feeling very alone and, just flung into our opposite corners and in our rooms, and songwriters couldn't connect with each other, just like none of us could, and really the only way to do it was to start doing some live streams. And that was what started this show, Tomes and Tunes, where I invite a guest songwriter onto the show every week to talk about books, because I love me some books, and to swap songs, because man, I love me some songs. And this is actually like one of my favorite things to do. I just sit sort of at the feet of a songwriter and listen to them play, and I get to ask them questions, things that I am curious about. It's just, total indulgence here. Thank you for tuning in. I hope it's interesting to you too. And I hope that you'll say hi in the chat and let us know where you are tuning in from. This week's episode 94 episodes. This week's episode guest is Claudia Nygaard. She is from California. She lives in Nashville. She has had an amazing career as a songwriter, and I have just had the absolute pleasure of bumping into her over the last year or so in various song circles, of course, online and streaming. Zoom is like the thing that has collapsed distance and time zones, so that an amazing artist who's in Nashville and little old me here in Los Angeles, we can kind of end up in the same song circle. And it's been a pleasure. I'm so excited to have her on the show today. So let me just welcome. Let's try that again. There we go. Claudia. Hi.
Hi. This is great.
Thank you for being here.
I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah.
If I'm looking a little bit to the side, it's because my computer, when I look this way, this is my webcam, and I'll use that when I'm singing, but
yeah.
I'm looking at
now you can see
on
me.
My computer screen.
Hi.
So.
I know, it's like it's not quite the same as in-person eye-to-eye contact, because that's one of the tricks of these live streams, is that we've got to be careful about where we're looking, and
because you don't want people to think you're just kind of like
do. I'm just reading the paper. Yeah, keep talking. I'm over here. So Claudia, you were telling me just before when we were in the green room that you have actually ventured out, and you just are back from a tour. Can you tell me about that a little bit?
What was the best part of it is I didn't catch anything.
Yeah, I mean.
But it was really fun. It was really nice to sing to live audience again.
Was that your first time singing to a live audience since the beginning of the pandemic?
Well, I did a little tour down in Louisiana and Texas, in between Delta and Omicron.
I know, it's like that little sweet spot, right?
You slide out, right between when things get dicey. So I think I did that again this time, because I know somebody else who was just in New York who got COVID, and so I'm really lucky I didn't. But I just had a blast. I went. I played in Knoxville, and played for a wonderful couple of series. Two actually played on my way up and again on my way back. Both of them are connected. My friend Lee Zimmerman, who's an amazing reviewer, who has spoiled me rotten, he invited me to play his little series, which is about books as well. The Bird in the Book. He's got a great book out, by the way, on Americana music. You might want to read that.
I do know about that book. I can picture the font right now.
Yeah. So then, so I played for them, and then I went out and I played a coffee house in Roanoke, Virginia, and then I played a house concert in Fairfax, Virginia. Went up to Cape Cod, and I shot a couple of videos, one with a horse that I absolutely fell in love with. His name was Tucker. And I'm coming out with a Western album. My next project is actually a Western album. So
wait, is this one of those moments where we say we have both country and Western at this bar? We have all kinds of, is that what we're talking about?
Did you ever know Cliffy Stone? He was from LA. Cliffy Stone used to have this thing called the Barn Dance in LA. And it was, it's before our time, you know, I mean, it was like in the 40s, I think.
Yeah.
And all, but he used to have, you know, people like Patsy Cline and Hank Williams and people like that come and play it. It was kind of like a precursor to the Palomino.
Oh, yeah.
And so, anyway, he and he had a show on TV, a Western music show on TV. So I met him, I forget how, but I ended up meeting him. Oh, I know how. I wrote a song about John Wayne when John Wayne died. He was my father's, you know, guru. And so, so I met Cliffy from that. And Cliffy told me that originally when music started being recorded, you know, with the gramophone and everything, people would record country music, which was mostly Appalachian-based, you know, it was in the hollers and everything. It was banjos and fiddles and all of that. And then there was some being recorded out west, but, you know, as we know about the West, it's a little more spread out.
Yeah.
So a little harder to come by the music. And, of course, the music that was coming out from the West was more, had more Hispanic roots, you know, it was more guitars and mariachi influenced than the Appalachian stuff. But the record labels didn't know what to do with Western music. So they just threw it in with country music because to them it sounded kind of the same. So that's when country Western got that hyphen. But they always were two separate genres. You know,
and so
just marketing changed it.
So your new album is going to be a Western album focused on that
not
side.
Country.
Okay.
I mean, I'm also a country artist, and I'm also an Americana artist, and I'm also a folk artist. I mean, I'm a roots artist. You know, but this particular album, my father was in the cattle business in California. We ran cattle in the San Joaquin Valley, and so that's where I spent my weekends. I had kind of a schizophrenic childhood growing up in Palo Alto during the week and tromping over the adobe in the weekend. But anyway, so I ended up kind of having like a lot of influence imagery. I've always written with like Western things, like you know, I'll write songs that'll mention adobe or something in them, or the some Western imagery, and all. But I never considered myself a Western artist until, do you know Joyce Woodson? She's a wonderful artist. She lives in down south of Capistrano, I think. Okay, that's where she lives. Anyway, she's she and I camped together at Kerrville a lot, and she kept saying, "You need to go to Western Music Association. You need to go." She kept saying every year she'd say, "You need to go." Finally, one year I was playing the George West Story Fest, which was in West Texas, and it was right before, it was the week before the WMA in Albuquerque, and I thought, well, if I'm ever going to go, this is the time to go because I'm already there.
Yeah, you're right.
Know?
You're next door.
So I went, and she was right. I mean, it's in my wheelhouse. And
did you feel like you found your people or something? Like did you feel there's
I've been playing music all over the country. I've played in 48 of the 50 states and 10 foreign countries.
What are the two states you haven't gotten to?
Maine and Delaware.
Oh.
I mean, I've been through them, I've driven through them,
Yeah.
but I just haven't performed in them yet. That's bucket list for this year, for 2022, not 2022, 2023, because I probably won't go back up to New England this year. But anyway, it just is a a really kind of a big part of who I am because of my father. And I mean, I could spin the camera around and you'd see there's a whole lot of Western stuff from my dad's den hanging on the walls here. So, but it's not Western like, Sons of the Pioneer. It's Western like Ian Tyson. There's a young man that I know. Is he, that kind of thing. It's more of a, it's kind of like a folk and country feels and melodies, but with Western imagery.
Yeah.
So I'm stretching the boundaries of Western a little, but so far everybody seems to like it. So we'll see what happens when the record's done.
Man, I love this. I love hearing about all this. So good.
Yeah. Well, you know what COVID taught me is that it's really time for me to record, and that's why I'm not touring anymore this summer. I'm coming out your way in the fall. I'm going to play the Durango Cowboy Poetry Gathering in early October, and then I'm headed to LA from there.
Okay.
But I've decided I have, besides this Western album ready to go, I have a Christmas album, an EP that I want to do, and I've written a children's project. So I've got like 3 things that I really want to record, and then I'm doing a Paul Simon, I think. I heard him on
Paul Simon album?
No, I heard him on a talk show, and he said, there's a lot of my songs that really just didn't get recorded quite right.
Oh.
And so he was re-recording them, and that's going to happen. There's some songs that I put out on an album when I was playing fairs, and it wasn't getting radio airplay, so I wasn't that concerned about it. They were basically just song demos I wrote when I was writing when I was writing on the row. I used to have a staff songwriting job on the Music Row.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I wrote, songs, and then I just do like kind of demos at home, and then I ended up throwing them all into a cassette originally, which I sold at the fairs, and then later I was making CDs. But
can we pause for a second? Because I know that there are some songwriters that tune into the show, but there are a lot of people who aren't songwriters. And so I want to put the brakes for a second, because you just said that you had a staff songwriting job on the row, and I can parse all that out. There's a lot of words that are missing from that sentence, though, for someone who doesn't know what on earth that means.
Yes.
So can you stretch that out?
Well, anybody watching has probably heard of Tin Pan Alley. And basically, Music Row in Nashville is a more contemporary version of Tin Pan Alley. Music Row started out originally as these little tiny houses on 16th and 17th Avenue that became publishing houses for music publishers. And then the record labels came and started recording country artists there because of the Ryman, And so it evolved into the music industry. And in terms of, when you do roots music, the best musicians in the world to play on your album are over on 16th and 17th, because you can go to Texas, and Texas has great places to play and great places to hear live music. But if you're wanting to record, the big boys are here. I mean, really, if you're going to record music, you need to either be in LA, New York, or Nashville. Yeah. I mean, you can do some blues maybe in Chicago and in Memphis, and some pretty cool music down in New Orleans, but you have to fit that genre for just, for country, Americana, roots. This is not just the home of country music, it's the home of gospel, the GMAs here, and also Americana. So this is where the players are.
And describe a little bit what that was like when you were a staff songwriter on the row. What was your day like?
Well, I would go down to the office, and I would bring my little box of lyric ideas, and I would sit in a cubicle and write songs, frequently with other writers, that they really like co-writing in this town. I'm not that big on it anymore. I feel that things have gotten pretty vapid on country radio, I think, and I think it's because you get so many writers on, and it just gets watered down. Also, I'm extremely codependent, and that doesn't make for good co-writing, because if somebody doesn't like my idea, I shut down, and then I can't contribute anymore. You know, if I have like a lyric idea or something, and
Yeah.
I say, oh, no, that's too, I go, oh. And then I freeze up. And vice versa, if somebody has a really bad idea, I don't have the balls to tell them. So it has to be, if I co-write, it has to be somebody I'm really comfortable with.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, like Slade Cleaves said recently in an interview, I don't have time to write a bad song. You know, I mean, because I book myself and I'm touring and I'm doing social media and I'm doing all this stuff. And it's like a song has to be a really good idea for me. It stops me in my tracks if it's a really good idea. Or if it's just something I just have to do. The other day I started a song and it goes, he sits there in his palace with his Russian dictionary and he'll pick up the rhyming one when the sixth word gets too scary. He wants us all to think he's great, but we just think he's scary. Putin cheats at Wordle, and it's so unnecessary. I probably never finish it because it's, you know, it's too...
But you had to write it. It's just one of those things.
I was mad.
You just gotta, like, you know, follow that, you know, that thread.
Actually, I had cheated on Wordle.
You know, I want to say that while you're talking about that, I know that someone here has chimed in, Ella, who just left Ukraine. She's Ukrainian. She just left Ukraine, and she's in London right now. And so I'm hoping that she appreciates the Putin cheats on Wordle
Oh,
thing.
that's great.
Hi, Ella. Nice to see you.
I want her to know that I drove all the way up to the Boston and back with a big yellow sunflower tied up with a blue ribbon on my passenger side.
Oh, man. Oh.
Yeah. Our hearts are with you.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, I'll say one more thing about Ukraine. I know you want to get back to music, but it's us. You know, I mean, it's us in 1776. I mean, they're standing behind buildings with stingers. We were standing behind trees with muskets.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. It's freedom.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
support those people as much every way we can.
Yeah, it's an existential fight. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And they're doing the fight for us. You know, because they're taking it on the chin, and all we're doing is sending them money, basically, money and tools. You know, I mean, but they're fighting. That isn't just a fight for Ukraine. That's a fight for freedom. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Claudia, do you what do you do with events like Ukraine or COVID, or like these or the summer protests, the George Floyd murder, those kinds of things? What do you do with that as a songwriter? Do those things influence your songs? Do you write overtly, explicitly about events, or like, what is the relationship for you with current events versus timeless, you know, like you just said about what's happening in Ukraine and the American Revolutionary War? Like, how do you frame current events? Do you frame them? Do they come into your songwriting?
I think that they connect. It's kind of like you have a synapse here and a synapse here. And it's like...
Speaking of synapses, I just got Claudia froze for me. And I don't know if that's the whole show or if it's just Claudia. Claudia, if you are listening, you are frozen for me. I'm hoping that you'll log out and log back on. Let's see here. I'm going to remove Claudia from the stream and hope that, let me just send her an email. Let's get her back on here. Claudia, come log back in. Goodness gracious. That's a first for the show, but inevitable. Oh, there we go. Okay, she's gonna do it. And I guess I'll use this time. Maybe I'll just play a little song. We need to get Claudia to play a song as soon as she gets back on here. I'm so enjoying the conversation. Let's see here. stepped out in silhouette, barefoot, glowing, sounding out my name. Laughter and chatter, a splash poolside band began to play. And what can I say? And baby, you're not a fallback, a rebound, distraction, no flash in the pan. And baby, you're not a trinket, a trophy, a token to show on my hand. You are everything worth waiting for. Underneath a canopy of branches, the shadows dappled light of sun. It's gonna take my whole life to show you you are the one. And you are the one. And baby, you're not a fallback, a rebound, distraction, no flash in the pan. And baby, you're not a trinket, trophy, a token to show on my hand. You are not the bottom of a bottle, a charm bracelet bauble tangled with stars and a horse. And you are not a sweet drink, a Ferris wheel fling. You are everything. Distraction, no flash in the pan. And baby, you're not a trinket, a trophy, a token to show on my hand. You are not the bottom of a bottle, a charm bracelet bauble tangled with stars and a horse. And you are not a sweet drink, no Ferris wheel fling. You are everything. You are everything worth waiting for. I was hoping that if I played Worth Waiting For, Claudia Nygaard would be able to get back in here. I think she might be having some trouble. Such an interesting conversation, though, so far. Let's see here. What can we do? What kind of magic can we pull to help her get back up here? In the meantime, if you are tuning in for Tomes and Tunes, my guest this week is Claudia Nygaard. She has had a long career as a Nashville songwriter. She's from California. And we were just talking in part about her her career. She's got a couple albums in the works. And she's just come off of a New England tour. A New England tour that, of course, included Virginia and Tennessee. But we were just talking about the place for songwriters of current events, or the place the place of current events in songwriting. I'm looking forward to hearing her answer when she comes back on here. But maybe while we're waiting, I'll play a song for you. I'll play a couple songs for you while we're waiting for her. I'm headed up to the Central Coast tomorrow to play a couple of shows, so... Oh, here we go. I hear that magic That magic bell. Claudia.
We had a power surge, and I lost my Wi-Fi. Went off. I think they're working on. We had a fire down the street, and the place was gutted, and so I imagine it's the fire department down there dealing with getting electricity back to the half of the building that wasn't.
I'm so glad you made it back on the show.
Me too.
You know, I hope everybody's okay with the fire and the electricity. But really, the important thing is that Claudia gets back on her tones and tunes.
Well, the fire was Saturday night, so I think everybody was okay. But yeah, it was just kind of like I was like, "What happened?"
I know.
All the lights flashed and then dead. You know.
Oh man.
But then they came right back on. But my Wi-Fi was no longer happening. So then I had to.
Well, that's how folks know that this is live. This is not pre-recorded, because if you are listening to the pre-recorded episode of this, you know that whole middle section has been cut out. Oh man. Well, Claudia, before you froze and all the Wi-Fi went out, we were talking about the place of current events in modern songwriting for you, and so I was wondering, you know,
for me, I think. For me, songwriting is kind of like you get sand stuck in your shell till it starts agitating and becomes a pearl. You know, it's like I have had songs that wouldn't let me not write them.
Yeah, totally.
You know, I mean, I wrote one song. I had this terrible case of poison ivy. So when I bought my first house, and I was playing in Las Vegas, and I had a band back then, so. You know, whoever was driving the van got to pick the radio station, and the drummer was driving, so we were listening to the drumming sounds of the Acampo Indians as we went across.
Oh, that's cool.
Arizona.
I thought you were going to say like, you know, prog rock of some sort. Oh,
no. It was, but
wow, that's cool.
So we had all this. I had all this input, and I woke up in the middle of the night, like 4 a.m. or something, and in this hotel, and all of these names were in my head, you know, and I thought I could trick the muse, so I thought, well, I'll just write these names down, and then I'll be able to write the song later. But that wasn't what the song had in mind.
No.
The song said, "No, you're going to stay up all night." So I finished the song about 10 a.m, you know. So.
I lose a lot of sleep when I'm writing a song. I lose it. It's not good sleeping times for me.
No. Yeah. But you know, that's okay. I mean, it's part of the process, you know. Anyway, to answer your question a little more succinctly, I think that something sticks in my craw. You know, and it can be something funny. You know, a lot of my song ideas come right out of my mouth. So there's something I'll say. Oh, but
that's an interesting part about songwriting, or being, I think, a writer in general, is that you kind of have to, you know, listen to yourself. It's almost like there are two yous in the room. There's the one that's taking actions and talking, and then there's the other you that's the observer you that's kind of watching and like, you know, collecting material, I suppose.
And you know, I've spent like 40 years writing, and I think where I am now is that I think in metaphors. Yeah. I mean, I'll be in the grocery store shopping. Yeah. And I think in rhyme and metaphors. Yeah. You know, there's no stopping it.
Yeah, it's
how do you write songs? How do you quit?
Yeah, it's like I could use some peace and quiet. I wish I could turn it off.
Turn this thing off.
Yeah.
So, but it's, you know, other times it just tumbles right out. Actually, if you want me to play a song?
I want you to play a song. I do. Yeah.
I'll play you this one. This one is one that had that thing of where it just sat in my head for a long time. It's a social song. I actually won Kerrville Folk Festival with this song, a songwriting competition, and I'm going to use my button because it's finger picking. So this song is actually a true story, and what happened was I had been up in the attic looking for something. I don't remember, tax returns probably, but anyway, I was up there looking for something, and I opened this box and there were all these toys in there. My mother had finally told me, come and get your toys or I'm throwing them out. I couldn't believe she would do that to me. I was only 40. Anyway, I was going through these boxes and I came across this one toy. And later that day, I had been thinking about this toy all day long because this toy, I'd been thinking about these toys, but then it made me start thinking about other toys I had and wondering whatever happened to them. And speaking of books, Tom Robbins.
Yeah.
Was it Skinny Legs and All? Where
yeah.
He had the book and the sock and the stick or something, went on an adventure across the ocean.
Yeah.
That inspired this. Old J.C. was a laborer. He worked for my dad. He had big old hands and a big old laugh. You should have seen the grin he had. Well, I remember one time when he and his brothers helped Daddy pour a patio. I was a regular tomboy then, kid about 8 years old. He took off his shirt to work in the noonday sun. So I took off mine till he said, put yours back on. With his child's eyes I couldn't see why anyone wouldn't like old J.C. If God could have grinned, he'd have grinned at me. Just like old J.C. J.C. worked in town all week. On weekends he was Dad's right hand. We had 25 cows, 3 horses, a dog, and 100 acres of land. And I had a calf I called Maverick. He had no mama at all. I raised him up all summer, and Dad sold him off in the fall. When the meat truck came to get him, my innocence died. With J.C.'s hand on my shoulder, we both cried. With a child's eyes I couldn't see why anyone wouldn't like old J.C. If God could have cried, he'd have cried with me. Just like old J.C. Well, Saturdays we'd go into town after something my mom'd want. And we'd stop for breakfast at this place called Sambo's Restaurant. They had tigers on the menu, and a boy that looked like J.C., and a waitress there with copper hair made a rag doll for me. It was a little black monkey in a little red vest with the initials J.C. on his chest. With a child's eyes I couldn't see why anyone wouldn't like old J.C. If God could have grinned, he'd have grinned at me. If God could have cried, he'd have cried with me. If God has a face, then it's bound to be a face like old J.C. Well, he's got a face just like old J.C.
Yeah.
So the thing was that you know, after seeing all these toys in the attic and everything, I started reflecting. During then, I started thinking about that Tom Robbins book, and I thought, you know, whatever happened to the can of beans? Was it a can of beans and a sock and a
I read it
painted
so
stick.
long ago. I can't.
Oh, I
even
know, me
remember.
too. Anyway, they went off on this adventure, and basically what I think propelled that book was that he was
Yeah.
thinking, what happens to my socks? Where does this stuff go when it's lost, And, I mean, for me, it's flat picks. It's like, I have a friend who says that, his cat eats his flat picks. He's sure of it, because they're gone all the time. Why do we always lose flat picks?
What kind of picks do you use, by the way? I'm looking at my
boy.
flat pick right now. I just switched over to these my producer loves these picks. He turned them on to me. I think that Neil Young turned them on to him. They're
yeah?
these Herco nylon flat picks. I love them.
I've got a Dunlop right now.
Oh yeah,
But that's
yay.
not what I usually use. I mean, my
Yours
favorite.
is the same color as mine.
My favorite is brown. My favorite is this color, but I don't see any of them here.
Check your cat.
I think I snagged them all when I hit the road. I thought, I don't have enough of these with me, so.
Yeah.
Anyway. But they're kind of like that. They have kind of a texture to them, so they don't turn
Yeah.
around in your fingers.
Yeah,
You know,
this
so,
one
so you
too.
don't get turned all around, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, but that made me start thinking, well, what happened to all my toys? And then I flashed on this monkey, which I no longer had actually,
Yeah.
and I'd gotten it as a child. When the waitress gave it to JC, he gave it to me, and I remember saying, "Don't you want to take this home to your boy?"
Mm.
And he said, "No, that's okay, honey. You can have it."
Hmm.
And then I realized when I was 40, I went, oh crap. Growing up in the Bay Area, I didn't think that, I thought the racism was limited to just in the South.
No,
It's not.
that's a unifying characteristic.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. I'm very upset, I'm sure you are too, being a book person, that they're trying to keep people from reading certain books. I just do. Censorship is just not okay.
Oh yeah, well that's happened for all time. But I just put Tennessee just banned Mouse. This it's a graphic memoir that won the Pulitzer Prize in 1994, I think, and it's a graphic memoir about a son who was born after World War II, interviewing his father, who was an Auschwitz survivor. And it's a graphic. It's done in comic book style. It's a graphic memoir, and Tennessee just banned that book, and I just put it on my syllabus for a course that I'm teaching this summer.
Good.
I was like, yeah. I mean, that's not the only reason I put it on the syllabus, but I was like, you know what? Even more so, this is a good time to put this on.
I've read quite a few things. How to be an anti-racist.
Yeah.
And white fragility.
Yeah.
And, until you know the whole story, you're going to be a racist. That's how it works. Ignorance is what makes you a racist. So the whole idea of banning those books is like, that's the only way.
The perpetuation of, the ignorance.
Here in Nashville, I mean, I've lived here now almost 30 years, practically. I think, I don't know what it is actually. But anyway, there's a street over near me, not too far away, called Jefferson Street. Back in the day when black people couldn't drink out of water faucets, white water faucets. They also couldn't try on clothes in clothing stores. Jefferson Street became the black commercial district. And, they had shops, they had barber shops, they had beauty salons, they had restaurants, and they had something you and I would wish dearly they still had, called the Chitlin Circuit. They had 4 or 5 nightclubs where you could hear Ray Charles, Jimi Hendrix, all these great black artists who could not stay in white hotels. So of course there were black hotels in this area too. So there was this very vibrant business district here in Nashville on Jefferson Street. And when the segregation ended, the white businesses wanted the black customers. Well, the black customers weren't comfortable to go to those white stores, and they were comfortable going to their black stores, so they kept going to their black stores. But the white business owners they fixed that. They ran I-40 right down the middle of Jefferson Avenue, demolished the whole neighborhood, demolished the district. They could have gone several blocks north or several blocks south and preserved that, but they went right down the middle.
Right.
Well, I didn't know that till this year. And I've lived here how many years? You know, when you know that kind of stuff, and I mean, yeah, being a Californian, you know the value of real estate in terms of her inheritance. You know, I wouldn't be sitting in this house I'm in right now if my folks hadn't had a ranch in San Joaquin. You know, where am I going to get a down payment as a musician? You know, it wasn't until my folks passed away that I was able to buy
I
a
hear
house.
so many musicians say that. It wasn't until my folks passed away that I could, you know, XYZ, buy a house is usually the top of that list. And it's such an interesting statement.
Yeah. You know, if I had spent the same amount of time becoming a doctor that I've spent becoming a musician, I could buy lots of houses.
Yeah.
But in our country, we don't value, you're either at the very top of the game, in which case you're ridiculously wealthy, or you're down at the bottom where you're barely, you know, getting by.
Yeah.
That's the nature of my business. But as I say to other people, I can't not do it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, I mean, I was just reading, you know, another quote that's a variation of what you just said, and I've read variations of this, you know, idea, like, if you can do anything else, do that. And so what's left is the people who are doing this are really the ones who are like, yeah, this is what I have to be doing. But I've lately been trying to parse that out a little bit. Like, for me, I quit music for 10 years, and I returned back to it in 2018, wrote a whole bunch of songs after not having written for, you know, a good number of years, and in 2019 recorded my 4th album, in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic released that album, and now I'm working on my 5th album right now. And you know, when I came back to music after that big break, the reason I came back to it was I just had this, you know, kind of you know, huge reckoning, this realization that if I don't come back to it now, I'll never, like, the tail of the tiger was almost out of my grasp. And I after, you know, after all this time, I was like, oh my gosh, no, I need to hold on to that, because that is the ride that I want to be on. That is what I have to do. And if I had waited a second longer, I felt like it was going to completely slip my grasp, and I would spend, you know, and, you know, if you're lucky, you get a long life, they say, you know. But for me at that moment, I was thinking, man, if I'm lucky and I get a long life, I'm going to spend the rest of my life not doing that thing that I feel like I need to be doing, that I'm here to do. And so
and
I need to just turn on a dime right now and start doing that thing that if I live for another year or another, you know, century, it doesn't matter. I want to spend the rest of it doing that.
Yeah, and that's really what it comes down to. It's, I mean, at this point now, as I said, I think in metaphors and rhymes. You know, I can't stop.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've trained myself. I've put in, you know, more than 10,000 hours.
Yeah, for sure.
Probably 50,000 hours.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I have a refrigerator covered with quotes, you know, and one of them, there's two that I would mention here. One is from Guy Clark. And it's, he said to Rodney Crowell, do you want to be a poet or a pop star? And because it's a difference, there's a difference, you know, and you can play to bigger audiences for a lot more money, but it may not be any more gratifying, and maybe less, you know. And then the other thing is that the other quote on there that this conversation brings to mind is, an authentic life doesn't always look like what other people think it should look like. You know, I mean, I never thought this would be my life. I was going to do this for the summer.
Surprise!
Yeah. I mean, I always wrote. I wrote poetry when I was really young, and my mom said I used to write her letters. We lived in the same house when I was a little girl. I would write her letters instead of talking to her.
I did the same thing.
Did you really?
I did. I remember especially when there was an argument that or like just something that I was tangled up in and couldn't resolve, that I would write a letter to her.
It allows you to, and this gets us back
It's a little
to
slower,
what
right?
we were talking about before my Wi-Fi adventure. But there is that ability to separate out your ideas on paper. You know, that you can process things. Yeah. You know, you can go through it and you write it, and of course, you know, I mean, I cry when I write happy songs. Yeah. You know, I mean, I just cry a lot.
Yeah.
but it's just, it's cathartic, and you process all of these feelings that you have, and to get back to your original question of, do these things impact me? Yes, but it may be years from now.
Yeah.
I mean, there are things that stick in your mind, like Putin cheats at Wordle, but it's not going to probably be a great song that will last forever, The thing about contemporary issues is that they come and go, and usually they go before you get them written. I wrote a song when I'm a Red Sox fan, starting out on the Cape when I was really young, as my first paid gig on Cape
Where was
Cod.
that on the Cape?
Brewster.
Okay. And that was why you became a Red Sox fan, is because of that first paid gig in Brewster?
It probably was join or die in those days.
I lived in Boston for a long time, so I can understand, yeah.
Well, so anyway, when they finally won the series after 86 years.
Yeah, I remember that year.
I had this friend named John Walsh who was born in Boston, Worcester. Not Worcester, Dorchester, I think.
Dorchester.
Maybe it was Worcester, I can't remember. Anyway, he grew up, lived his whole life, never saw them win the series,
Yeah.
And we used to go, because I always had Monday nights off because I was a musician, and we'd go down to the Yard Arm and eat cod cheeks and drink Heinekens and watch the game,
Yeah.
He was quite a bit older than me, like 20, 30 years older, but he was a great friend and just celebrated me in a way that maybe my father wasn't able to. My father had a problem with alcohol, so he just, I know my dad loved me, but he wasn't able to say it like John would. John was always, say, oh, you're a pistol, that sort of thing, So anyway, when John died, right after that, just a few years after that, they finally broke the curse, and I wrote this song called Letter to a Bo Sox Fan in Heaven. And I played it when I was playing the Wellfleet last week or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, oh yeah, just played it.
And there were people in the audience crying, because they had relatives who never saw the Sox win, too. I was looking around, I thought, people were crying over this song? And then I went, of course, they had an uncle or a grandfather or a father that they used to go to the games with, and their relative never saw them win a series either.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but that, that stuck in my craw. I just couldn't, I wanted so badly to tell him, that they had won finally, when they won, and the bloody socks and the haircuts and all that stuff, and that grand slam Johnny Damon made, and the green wall.
You know what this is, welling up for me inside is that it's not just, those folks in Wellfleet who also cried about this song. And you just said, well, they have people, relatives or loved ones who didn't get to see the Sox win the series. But also, I'm thinking about COVID and, just the folks who I know who have died over the last 2 years, not from COVID, but from something else. And, I've just thought so many times, like, wow, they didn't get through the end of this. Like they didn't see, how this is playing out. And, when they left this earth, this is the state that things were in. And
I was thinking about that the other day, that because both of my heroes, Guy Clark and John Prine, passed. John Prine had COVID and died.
Yeah.
And they were both my biggest heroes as songwriters. And neither one of them knew how COVID was going to end, and neither one of them knew that this was going to go on in the Ukraine, and it's, life goes on with all of this turbulence and everything, and we're just specks on the horizon,
Yeah, totally. Claudia, so many things to talk about, but I have to honor the show, which is Tomes and Tunes, and ask you what you've been reading.
Well, I've been reading a lot of things, but the most recent book that I've finished, because I have a tendency to have 4 or 5 books. I don't know if I told you, I've been in a book club for 40 years.
You didn't include that information in your application for the show.
Really?
There was no application for the show. But
well, I've done a lot of reading. We've had this book club, same women, for all this time.
Wow.
I mean, we
This
started
is
out like
before
12
book
and we're
clubs
down
were
to
even
9.
before
Yeah.
book clubs were even book clubs.
Yeah.
So what have
So-
you been reading recently?
Recently, I read, I'm going to cheat here and look at the title because it's off the top of my head. I'm not remembering it, but I've got it here. Oh. Hang on 1 second. I have to open this because it got shut down by
The Wi-Fi shenanigans.
the Wi-Fi shenanigans. So, here it is. Well, there's 2 things that I read, and these are both nonfiction. I read a lot of fiction, but these are 2 different books that are kind of tied together. One of them is called A Dangerous Liaison by Carol Seymour Jones, and it's about the relationship and the lives of Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir.
Mm.
And I grew up, I'm going to have a minor in French. I've been doing Wordle in French, which is very interesting. I have to use a dictionary for that one. But anyway, they were authors that I read in college when I was taking French, and we would read the original in French.
Yeah.
And grew up thinking of Simone de Beauvoir as being a precursor to the women's movement, and you know how brilliant they both were in this amazing relationship that they had. And reading this book, man, that all just bit the dust. It's 500 pages. I hated it, and I read the whole thing.
Oh
I
man.
made myself, but it was, you know, and it started me thinking about the fact that there are different kinds of intelligence. You know, there's science, kids who are really good at science in school, and then there are kids who have street smarts. You know, there's somebody who would maybe be a software genius, and then there's the guy that you'd want to be trapped on a desert island with for his survival skills. You know, there's a whole lot of different kinds of intelligence. And Simone de Beauvoir and Jean-Paul Sartre were both great literary minds, but they were completely wrecked as human beings. Absolutely wrecked. Jean-Paul Sartre was a complete narcissist. He was a misogynist, and he was a pervert and a liar. I mean, he was just awful. And Simone de Beauvoir, who became the spearhead for the women's movement, was a complete victim by Sartre. She would harvest young girls in her classrooms and pimp them out to him. You know, and they both ended up dying of alcoholism. So it's a very depressing book, and I suggest no one reads it. But there is a much better book that I was turned on to by reading about Sartre, because Sartre was a big follower of logotherapy, which was started by Viktor Frankl. And Viktor Frankl's book is called Man's Search for Meaning.
That's right.
He was in a concentration camp. He was in 4 of them.
Yep.
And the book is about how some people have the will to survive under all kinds of situations, and because their life has meaning.
Yeah.
You know? And at that book, I mean, he's a much better human being, so the book is much more appealing, and I really recommend that one. And he said, in his book, he says, your life already has meaning. Your task is to embrace it.
Yeah.
You know, so I highly recommend Viktor Frankl's book. And Frankl is spelled Frankl, not E-L or L-E, just L. I forget what nationality he was. I think he might have been Polish. I'm not sure, but anyway. So that was the most recent book that I've finished. Got about 4 I'm working on right now.
I've been reading that book that I mentioned earlier, Mouse, the graphic memoir, Survival's Tale. And I was, as a Jewish child being raised in the Northeast of the United States at the time period that I was raised in, Holocaust education was a huge part of my upbringing.
Good.
And at the time, I think the pedagogy is different now. I think the curriculums are different. At the time, the thrust of the education kind of emphasized the victimhood of the Jews. And when I got a little bit older, when I went to college, and then in my 20s, I kind of turned my back on wanting to watch any movies or read any books. I was just kind of sick of it. I feel like it was a very rich and important part of my upbringing and my education, but at the same time, I felt like I went through a period where I had to sort of reclaim myself as someone with my own agency who can move through the world and make decisions. Particularly, I think this is important. I think it's important for everybody, but I think it's really important for artists to be able to do that. And I think that for women, especially, it's really easy in society to not find that standing on my own 2 feet kind of energy. There's a lot of narratives out there about, be the damsel in distress because someone will save you, and that sort of thing. And
oh, sure.
and so
Cinderella.
yeah, exactly, all of those things. So I've known about this book Mouse for forever, well, for a really long time anyway, and and I was not ready to read it until I came across it again recently, and I was actually looking for a memoir that was written in this kind of style, this comic book style, because I'm teaching a memoir class this summer, and every other book that is going to be on the syllabus is a traditional, words on a page, no pictures, kind of book, standard book. But I wanted also to include on the syllabus a graphic memoir, and so this book sort of came back under my radar, and I'm really appreciating, I'm a person who has never had much patience for comics. I really like to read books, and slowing down to look at the pictures is just not something that I do. I want to devour the words, and ain't got no time for these pictures.
Yeah.
But I really, really am enjoying is maybe a weird word to say about a book that's about the Holocaust, but I'm really appreciating, I guess, the format of this. It is slowing me down. I am looking at the pictures, and it's very pithy, because
Sure.
versus a literary memoir where there's infinite amount of space for the writer to essay, to become essayistic and dive into, explore ideas. In a comic book style narrative, there's not a lot of space at all. It's just, idea and then picture, and then idea and then picture. And I feel that it's incredibly effective. So that's what I've been reading lately. I don't have that book in front of me at the moment, so I pulled this off of the shelf next to me, which is, speaking of pictures, it's called Missed Connections, Love Lost and Found by Sophie Blackall. And she basically went to the, what is it called? It's like it used to be in newspapers, and now it's, on, maybe online, but missed connections, like, I saw you here, you were wearing this, if you want to connect, those kinds of things. And so she found a bunch of these and then put these really wonderful illustrations to them. So this one says, for example, long curly brown hair on the Q. These all take place in New York City, I think. And it says M4W36. And the description: you had pink fingernails and got on the Q train at Atlantic, if not DeKalb. I felt an irrational desire to invite you out to dinner. I found you stunningly beautiful, but you'll probably never know. I think you changed trains at Times Square, and I watched as you stepped between closing doors and disappeared. If for some reason you check this, it would be nice to hear from you. Either way, I hope you're well. And so the illustration is just this, the characteristic that he mentioned in the description about her long brown hair. So the illustration is of a subway car door and this woman on the inside with her hair that's about probably 7 feet long. So long curly brown hair on the cue. So I really enjoy this book, and sometimes I keep it in here in the shed. I don't have that. I have all my journals in here, but I don't have that many other books in here. But I keep this one in here because I do my songwriting generally in this room, and um, sometimes I like to just open this up and flip through it as I'm thinking about songs and just looking at these pictures.
Sure.
So there's that.
Yeah, that's great. And I think it's interesting, the conversation between visual and literary word, the written word. I listen to books on tape a lot because I'm driving a lot.
Yeah, me too.
you know. And so that's interesting, kind of. I like to read sometimes, like I've read all the Outlander stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And so now I'm watching it on TV.
Yeah.
And, on Netflix, or no, what is it?
Gosh,
Stars,
I watched, that's one that I started to watch the series, and then it just got too brutally, just too brutal.
The first episodes are very brutal, but then after that's not.
Oh, maybe because people like me bailed, like they saw their viewership go down. But then I tried to listen on Audible to the book, and I was like, I gave it a good go. I couldn't let go of the characters and the scenes in my head for a long time, but I just couldn't connect with the writing.
I mean, when I watched that first one, that first episode, I was like, oh boy, I don't know if I'm going to do this or not.
Yeah.
And then I stuck it out because there was something, I forget what it was in the first season, that I wanted to see how they were going to handle it.
Oh.
So I ended up then getting hooked on it.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I read was all of the Dune series by Frank Herbert, and I read those in my 20s.
Yeah, I
So
never read those.
Oh, you didn't?
No,
I love sci-fi.
Yeah.
And I always love imagining things that don't exist.
For sure, yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of, I suppose, because it's so creative. But
yeah.
Anyway, the book stuck with me. I mean, it was the first year I was playing music on the Cape, and I would take a book to the beach all the time. And I was reading Dune that year. I was reading Dune and Children of Dune and Dune Messiah and all these different versions of it. The first one, what I loved about it was, of course, the heroine, the mother, Jessica, she's really, really powerful. And she has the ability to drink poison and then break the molecules apart and reassemble them in a non-toxic way to her body with her mind. Which is a really good trick.
That's funny because I have that exact same superpower.
Oh, do you?
That's amazing. That's awesome.
But so I'm going to read you, because I'm going to read you this one quote.
Okay, great. Yeah, good.
Yeah. Because I thought it would be good. This would be a good one to pick up because this has stayed with me since my early 20s.
Yeah.
Oh. I mean, that long. So this is Frank Herbert, Dune. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain.
Oh, Claudia, I needed to hear that today.
Oh, did you? Good. Well, that's the thing. Man. I mean, it's like, I have always been really impressed by that. I mean, that has been a guiding light for me my whole life. Yeah. Since I read it in my 20s, my early 20s. It's like, and then, what I spent, as I mentioned earlier, my father was an alcoholic, and I spent about 20 years in therapy, which I highly recommend for songwriters because you start peeling back the layers of the onion. For people who are watching this that are not songwriters, there are, and a lot of songwriters don't know this, but there are primary emotions and secondary emotions. Love is a primary emotion. People think that hate is a primary emotion, but it's not. Fear is a primary emotion, and hate is based on fear, as is racism and violence of any kind. It all comes down to fear, and fear of losing something, control, or, your status, or whatever it is. But anyway, that fear, when you get into therapy and you start peeling back the layers of the onion, you get to where that fear is dissolved. Because once you verbalize out loud things that are eating you up, it diffuses the bomb. It takes their power away. And they no longer have that import that they did.
Or yeah, right. Like the fear doesn't necessarily always completely disappear, but the recognition that it's a piece of a bigger picture, not the whole picture.
Yeah.
Like, then when fear is no longer the largest thing looming in your eyes, you've scrolled back a bit, you start to realize that there's a bigger value.
Yes.
Right? That the fear picture has kind of overlaid on top of that bigger thing. Yeah.
And it does diffuse the bomb. It does diminish its power over you when you said it out loud. If you're afraid that you're not lovable.
Yeah.
So okay, well, it was like I remember, thinking, well, I know there is a being that loves me, even if human beings don't. And so once you go down into that black hole and you see that there's still light down there, it's a different game.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, you can't be afraid of what you don't know, and you can't, it's like, I never would have thought that I would live my whole life without being married, and I probably will, because I've never been married so far. And I'm okay with that now. There was a time, I think in my 40s, when I thought, well, there must be something wrong with me that I can't seem to get married, which my therapist did point out. She said to me one time, she said, how come you think you've never been married? And I said, I don't know, I think I'm just kind of that James Dean, or I said, I think I just fall for those James Dean kind of guys that can't make a commitment. She said, Claudia, I've known you about 10 years now, and I think maybe you're the James Dean
Yeah,
guy
I was like, yeah.
I said, hey, I'm paying you good money for this. But, maybe that's it, I know that I have never met a man I could give up music for. I don't think that would be.
But you haven't met a man that wouldn't ask you to do that?
Well, that's the whole thing. I mean, if somebody would ask me to do that, he wouldn't be the right guy.
Right.
By definition.
And you don't think that you would meet the right person who wouldn't ask you that? Who wouldn't say, you have to give up this for me? That we can live in a world that
I think that
is
I
big
probably
enough,
have
large
met
enough.
that guy, but I just was too ignorant and young to know what I had, But also, my life there's a lot of chance, with that. I mean,
Totally.
I started out my career singing in bars. So, who I met? Alcoholics. Anybody who was in the bar often enough that I got to know him, was drinking a lot. And or he was a musician. So my first 10 years in my life, I was either with musicians or drunks.
Well, those aren't necessarily the same category. Those can be two different categories.
Yeah, they can.
Claudia, maybe this is a good segue for another song. Will you play us some more music?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have a song from you, and then we'll have a song from me, and we'll just close it up.
Okay. Let's see here. I haven't really decided what to play. Maybe I'll do this. This is off my latest album, Lucky Girl.
Oh, that's
It's a story of my life. Somewhere in the middle of Ohio, when I got your call. I never thought we'd go the distance, but that didn't stop the tears at all. A few days later in Nebraska, I was yelling curse words at the rain. It didn't make the highway any drier, but sometimes anger swallows pain. I'll hold the wheel a little tighter. I won't watch the rearview mirror anymore. Around this curve the light gets brighter. I've been down this road before. Yeah, I've been down this road before. Pulled into a truck stop in Montana as our song came on the radio. I shrugged it off and changed the channel. That song's too slow, just too damn slow. I'll hold the wheel a little tighter. I won't watch the rearview mirror anymore. Around this curve the light got brighter, just like all the times before. Yeah, I've been down this road before. By the time I rolled out of Wyoming, made it down to Oklahoma, headed south, I felt a near forgotten feeling tugging up the corners of my mouth. It was tugging up the corners of my mouth. Now I hold the wheel a little lighter, and I don't watch the rearview mirror anymore. Around this curve the light got brighter, just like all the times before. Just like all those times before. See, I've been down this road before.
Yeah.
So you know what that's about.
What are you going to tell me?
It's all the stages of grief, which I read somewhere. You know, you start off and you're angry,
Yeah.
then you're sad, then you get to Montana, you have some acceptance, and then you finally come out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's
By
really
the time you
nice.
get to Oklahoma.
You can see that change over the course of the song.
Yeah, good. That was the idea.
Yeah, well, success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're going to play us a song.
I am. I love just being sung to.
So do I.
Oh.
Do you know Harold Payne?
Yeah, I think that we have crossed paths.
He's a songwriter in L.A.
Yeah.
We were friends. Well, I mean, we're still friends, but I mean, used to know him pretty well when I lived in L.A. And he's got a song called "Music Speaks Louder Than Words. It's the only thing that the whole world listens to." It's really beautiful. So.
Yeah.
He's got another one too. I used to tease him that I wanted to cut it, but it's called "This Time the Writer Sings His Own Song," which of course I couldn't sing it because I couldn't write it. But that was my favorite of his, those two.
Yeah, music is such a it's funny, after a whole lifetime of playing music, I still feel like I'm grasping to be able to express certain things about it, because it is
Me
easier
too.
just to play the music, just to sing than to talk about, it. But there's something about music. Maybe this is everything about music, the fact that it takes place over time, and it's just there's something about, the fact that a song captures a particular time and then you can listen back to that song over and over again, and it brings you back to that time. It has this like time travel, but also it like stretches out time. When you're sitting in, like when I was sitting here and listening to this last song that you just played, I just felt like time stopped. But of course time was going on because music takes place over time. If it stopped, it would just be like,
Yeah. 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 It doesn't freeze except when your Wi-Fi goes out.
That's right. There's that too. Actually, this is funny, but this is actually a song about just those. It's called "Bottle Up Tonight," and it's just those moments you want to just bottle up and just hold on to that moment. And this is a song that that I was thinking about the beginning of COVID in the first year, after the first month of the pandemic. The folks in my neighborhood and in this area, they started putting up their holiday lights again. And my sweetheart and I would bicycle around town at night. We'd light up our bikes and we'd pass all of these, the Christmas trees. And, like people were putting their holiday decorations back up in April of 2020. And it was so
cool.
awesome. And then we were, we would pass these houses and they would have unfurled bed sheets along the side of the house. And the neighbors had set up lawn chairs and everybody was 6 feet apart. And they were watching, I don't know, Back to the Future or whatever it would be, and it was just such a, the air traffic had stopped, and I can't not acknowledge that the reason all of this was happening was because it was a terrifying time, right? And very disruptive, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of anxiety, a lot of overwhelm, but at the same time, the coyotes were coming back and the air traffic had stopped so I could hear the bird song, all day, every day. And, there was a lot of that, like, just like everything got still, right? Yeah, it wasn't as rushed. There was nowhere to rush to. You weren't going anywhere. You were staying home. There was nothing to like, and I know that for a lot of people that in itself was completely distressing, but for me, I felt like I just want to hold on to this,
I was the same way as you, but I think maybe, being songwriters, we're a little more introspective than most people.
Possibly.
But I probably not any question about that, actually. But I felt the same way. I mean, it changed my life because, I mean, I have been chasing the carrot for so long.
Yeah.
I've been running all over the country, playing music, and I love it. I love singing to a live audience, and I love traveling. I love seeing new things all the time and seeing old friends. I've been on the road for my whole life, so I have great friends everywhere in the country. Yeah. And I love doing that, going around and seeing everybody. Yeah. But what I realized when COVID hit was, okay, all those times you've thought to yourself, well, someday I'm going to, this is that time. This is that someday, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why I'm not touring this summer. I'm just going to stay home. I'm going to get out. I also learned, you know, because of live streaming, you know, when you're on the road, on tour, you have, even if you don't have hit songs, you have certain songs that your fans really like, and you know which ones they are.
Yeah.
You know, because they'll come up after the show and they'll say, which one has a song about your dad on it, or which one has a song about JC, or which one, you know, they want to know which album has these songs. So you get a feel for, and then you can tell by the response, and then of course, you know, the winning contests and stuff, because like Lucky Girl, the title cut of my new album, is big popular because it got all the airplay on folk radio and all. So you know which ones these are. So you end up playing the same songs kind of night after night.
Yeah.
When you're on the road, because you've got these certain songs people want to hear.
Yeah.
And also you probably have a lot of new people in the audience, and you want to try out your best stuff.
Yeah.
But when COVID hit and we started live streaming, I got the same people coming back all the time.
Did you go to the B-sides?
I
You got to
did,
play
and
those
it
deep
was
cuts, right?
fabulous. It was so fun.
Yeah.
It was so creative. And, you know, I was playing songs I wrote in L.A. in my 20s, and I never thought they were good songs. Turned out it was just my guitar playing in those days. There was nothing wrong with the songs. Songs were better than I remembered.
You just couldn't perform them as well as you can do them.
You know?
Oh,
But after
that's
30
an
years
interesting
more
guy.
playing guitar, the songs, you know, really came alive. And I've had a blast. And so now, and then the other thing is with Spotify now, you know, we can
Everything
release
old is new
singles.
again.
Yeah, but you can release a single. It's you know, it's
Yeah.
always been a thing where if a song, I mean, maybe I write a song that was kind of jazzy or something, it doesn't really fit on my Americana album, so I never would record it. Well, now I can record it anyway.
Yeah, you can
put
just
it out on
release it.
Spotify.
So that's what you were talking about earlier when you said that you were doing the Paul Simon thing, where you wanted to re-record some of those older songs and maybe record
Yeah.
some songs that never got out there.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
a lot
cool.
of songs. I
Yeah.
have like 350 songs, you know, and
Yeah.
I've only recorded about 50 of them,
Yeah.
so I have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, you do. That's job
And then
security,
the
Claudia.
other thing too is that, you know, these people are dropping like flies. I'm thinking, okay, so if you got the word that, you know, you need to get your affairs in order, do you want to have to record 300 songs before you die? You know, don't you want to have that already done? You know?
Wow.
So
Yeah.
I started thinking about that. My mother died when she was 4 years old. She died young. She was only 4. She died younger and younger all the time now that I get closer to that age. But
Yeah.
she, you know, she died pretty young, and she was only 4 years older than I am right now. So the combination
That's
of
sobering.
COVID and the fact that my mother died, you know, I thought, well, what if I've only got 4 years left? You know,
Wow. Yeah.
I got some stuff
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
So. But anyway, I digress. Please
Wow.
play us a song.
So this is Bottle Up Tonight as the airplane goes overhead. One part alabaster moon, one part rustling old raccoon, one part whispers of a breeze, one part heady jasmine bloom, one part lonely nightbird tune, one part two heartbeats. Might we make an apothecary potion? Nor bottle it like Napa wine? Might we capture all we left unspoken? Cork it up for future delight, whatever time might hold, whatever fate unfolds. Forget all that we can't come control. But let's bottle up tonight. Spotlight of a street lamp beam, shadows dancing in between. Familiar as an old refrain. All the stories of the past, the future ones that come too fast. And off the edges of the frame, might we make an apothecary potion? Or bottle it like Napa wine? Might we capture all we left unspoken? Cork it up for future delight, whatever time might hold. Whatever fate unfolds, forget all that we can't control. But let's bottle up too. Whatever time might hold, whatever fate unfolds, forget all that we can't control. But let's bottle up tonight.
Lovely imagery.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Do you have any Gaelic friends?
Do you mean like friends of Irish background, or?
Do you know anybody with like an Irish band or anybody?
Yeah, I know a few people, I guess. Yeah.
You should pitch that. I could hear an Irish version of that, like a Celtic band. Do you know if you know a Celtic band?
Yeah, sure.
That
Yeah,
song to them.
yeah.
I think it would sound great with that lilting Irish brogue.
Oh, that's a wonderful idea. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Our local Irish pub during COVID has, I think it must have come under new ownership, and they used to have session players, right inside the front door. They're just, with their Irish, tunes and everything. And I haven't been in there since COVID hit, but it's come under new ownership, and there's just some cues on the signage that make it seem like it's no longer a place where the sessions are happening downstairs. But I am going to be in Boston this summer, so maybe I will bring that song down to any place, really.
Yeah, right. In Boston.
Now that I think about it. Oh, man. Yeah. Claudia, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your songs and stories.
It's great to get to know you better.
Totally. Yeah. What's the best way for people to support you? Because I really want to always remember to ask the artist, I know that sometimes it's of course I have your Venmo and your PayPal links up there, but there are other ways as well. I mean, you've got a lot of albums, and if someone wants to buy an album or put some ducats in the tip jar, great. But what are some other ways that people can support you?
Well, by going to any of my socials. YouTube is a good way.
Subscribing on YouTube, yeah.
Yeah, because YouTube, let's see if I can do this here. Hang on a second. I don't know if this is going to work or not. Let me just see if it's, wait. Nope, that's not going to work. Darn it. Because it's real close to working. But I've got fancy schmancy stuff I'm doing here on my camera thing. I use, hang on a second here. I'm going to try this. See if I can do this. And I hope that this won't, oh crap. Excuse me.
What is it? What do you?
I was trying to, I'm using, did I just make myself look really small?
No, you're the same size.
I was trying to do something. I was trying to put, well, I might still be able to do this. Hang on one second. I just need to, I've got this little QR code. And, so I'm trying to add myself, but it's not going to work.
Yeah, that's all right.
Anyway, I mean, I have this very big thing here that I can send over. And that has, it's not doing it. Well, never mind. I thought OBS was where I'm sending myself to you from this camera, from this webcam. But I thought it was coming through OBS to go to that webcam, and it's not.
You're using OBS.
In OBS, I have like QR codes and stuff, and I thought I could just slide it in there.
Well, you know what? I'm hopeful that this podcast is actually going to become an audio only podcast. I mean, the video will still live, but I'm hoping it will also be soon distributed on audio only podcast platforms. So for the folks who are only listening, they wouldn't be able to see the QR code anyway.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
True.
Well, so YouTube, the people should find you on YouTube.
Or my website. My website is claudianygaard.com, and it's spelled Claudia, N like Nashville, or NY like nymphomaniac, GAARD as in dog.
And .com, right? Yeah, there we go.
Or you can do an @ sign and do @Claudia Nygaard in YouTube, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is a good way, because I'm going to be live streaming a lot this summer. Since I'm going to be in town. So if you want to know about that, or new videos coming out or whatever.
Yeah. And also, just a reminder for the folks listening that subscribing to YouTube channels as independent artists, it is so helpful for us if you subscribe, if you just click that big red button that says subscribe on YouTube or on the Facebook page or on Spotify or Apple, whatever platforms you use. Every time you hit those buttons on an independent artist's page, you get, like kittens get wings or something like that. I don't know. There's something really special that happens in the cosmos every time you do that. It's really helpful for independent artists.
Makes a big difference on when you can make any money. I have actually a song that somebody else made a video of that I wrote about Miss Kitty from Gunsmoke. And it's about the fact that Marshall Dillon never kissed her in all those years. It's a protest song. Every folk singer needs a protest song. Anyway, it's had 200,000 hits, and I haven't made a dime off it because you have to have 1,000 subscribers before you can monetize your site.
That's true. Wow. Yeah, so folks, we need to get 1,000 subscribers on our YouTube channels. So subscribe to Claudia's YouTube channel, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Arielle Silver. Claudia, I'm going to see you in the green room in just a minute, so you don't go anywhere, but I am going to close up here. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. It was really fun to talk to you.
Yeah, likewise. And you stay right there, and I'm going to say goodbye to all y'all. Thank you for listening, for watching, for all of your support in all the ways that it comes. Independent music is alive, and thankfully, it's just a collaboration always with the creators of the music and the listeners of the music. So thank you. I will be back right here in my little she shed in Los Angeles next week with another show. So I hope that you will tune in. And until we meet again, be safe, be kind, shower the people you love with love. Take good care.